Shalom. Shalom, family. Thank you so much for joining us. Shalom, Sholiak. So
Shalom,
glad,
shalom.
so glad we get together again for another one of these hangouts. Man.
Nice.
Folks, we want to talk about today something that I believe is really important. Sholiak and I were talking backstage about the wheat and the tares. And we take certain topics for granted. If there's one thing that you have all experienced watching either of our broadcasts, either one of us on a Shabbat, is you learn things you didn't hear before. That is weekly. Doesn't matter which broadcast you tune into. Doesn't matter which topic we're touching. You're going to hear things you didn't hear before. And the reason I believe that is because when Yahuwah sends his servants, they slow things down to make you think about them. And as a result, you start to realize things that you had never seen before. And one of the beautiful things about this is that we are moving closer and closer to something Yahuwah spoke to me 30 years ago. He said to me, I'm going to move you at a speed your adversary cannot match. And I thought, I remember because I was a young man, a young man, you think sort of young men thoughts. The young men think speed, we're thinking,
That's good. That's
man,
good
I'm
and
going to
bad.
fly, I'm going to go,
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, boy, how fast do you got to go to outrun an archangel, and man, that's got to be some serious speed. What's that, Mach 10, 20? What is that? How fast are you going? Speed of light? What's going on here?
Yeah.
And so he let me go down that road. Like he let me have a little fun with that thought, just, well, how fast is that? And finally, after he lets you go for a while, he goes, he answers me, he says, perfect stillness, Peter.
Yeah.
It is the speed your adversary cannot match.
That's deep. That is deep. Be still and know that I am Yahuwah.
Perfect stillness is the speed he cannot match.
And the perfect shalom that comes with that perfect stillness.
That's right. It took me a minute to figure that one out.
Yeah.
And then when I did, he settles you.
But that's pretty profound, right?
That's right.
Because when we think of speed, we think of outrunning or outdistancing.
Yes, that's what fooled me initially.
But the kingdom works exactly opposite than the world works.
Yes, it does.
The kingdom is like, it's not only, it's not don't outrun your adversary. It's not don't slow down. Just the opposite. Be still and know that I am Yahuwah. 1 Chronicles 20:20, right? Stand still and see the salvation of our Yahuwah. Right?
That's right.
It's all over the scriptures.
That's right. Standing still.
And I've had to learn that as a pastor because and we'll get that back to the wheat and the tares, but
it's okay.
We have time. Willing. I've had to learn that because when I first started being a pastor, when I was a young pastor, I felt like I was a firefighter and I had to handle every emergency, right? Get the hose, get the truck, show who's boss. Every emergency, I had to reestablish in my young, inexperienced head. I had to reestablish my authority in the emergency to show everybody who's boss. And so those things, in case they happened again, wouldn't happen again. I thought it was preventative, right? So and in cases like that, as a pastor, you can overreact, right? And then when you overreact, you cause more damage. So I had to learn over the years, and you talk about Yahuwah saying, be still. And that's how you outrun your enemies. Right. I had to learn to do nothing. Now, you have to understand, you understand, but I think a lot of people don't understand. For a type A personality like I am, okay, it's hard not to do something because whether it's character deficiency, whether it's woundedness, whether it's whatever is behind my behavior, okay, I tended to, as a pastor, to overreact. And the word of Yahuwah came to me. The burden of the word of Yahuwah came to me many times, many times. Let me handle this. And I said no. I may not have verbally said no, right? You understand what I'm saying?
Right, but in
But
in effect,
in my heart, I was like, Yahuwah, don't tell me what to do. All right. You gave me this job. This guy is talking about my wife. I'm not going to let him sit there. I'm not going to let him sit there and talk about my wife. I'm going to throw his ass out with his cousin Vinny. Okay. And Yahuwah goes like this. I told you, when you let me handle this, I will bring my will into the conclusion. If you handle this, you're going to keep not only making things worse,
Mhm.
you're going to show the immaturity of an experience, and you're going to show the immaturity of youth. I had to learn. That's part of growing up as a leader. As part of growing, somebody said this the other day. You don't have to answer every critic. You don't have to. You need to know when to answer, when to respond, and when to just walk away and be quiet and let Yahuwah handle it. And that comes with maturity. That comes with a sensitivity to the Ruach.
Boy, you said a mouthful there. I'm looking for a pad so I can write notes because I thought I had one. I'll have to grab some more paper.
And I'm not going to
Um,
lie. And I'm not going to lie to you. It was a big struggle for me
that is huge.
because
It's
of
beyond huge. It's
my
beyond huge.
personality. And I am a fixed person. In other words, when it comes to hammering in a nail or taking two by fours and putting on a bracket, I'm impotent. I have to call Amos or somebody to come help me. All right, even feeding my goats, I need help. People in the congregation, I'm completely impotent. But when it comes to the things of the spirit, yes, I'm mature and I've been tried in the fire. So I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, but getting back to what you were saying, that's how you outrun the situation. You be
Yes.
still and know that he is Yahuwah and that he can handle it better and has a little bit more experience than we do.
My wife was sitting in our space here a few days ago, and she read something out loud, and basically it was essentially an encouragement that there are people who are stunned that you're still here because they organized an entire gang against you and you survived it. The power of perfect stillness cannot be overstated. The importance of coming into shalom, what real shalom is. We say words without knowing what they mean. We say, how many people have been fooled by somebody saying, I love you, because they didn't even know what those words mean?
Right.
Or that we're friends and didn't know what the word friend meant.
Right.
And so people use words all the time without knowing what they really mean. And I think that shalom is one of them. I
Mm,
definitely think shalom is one of them.
right.
My brother Scott, as a good example, came. They're up visiting in Oregon right now, but he was here for. They've come down to be with us here at New Kingdom, and he's starting to really recover his sleep. And I knew he would. I said, you just come to the place of Shalom. Watch, you will sleep. It will recover. And he had serious insomnia. If anybody knows, uh, this guy would spend 10, 20 days straight, no sleep. That's how serious this insomnia is.
That's very serious. That's
It's
very
not a light matter when somebody cannot
yeah.
sleep multiple
No.
days in a row. So for him to get 5 hours, which you think of as a light night, that to him is a huge, huge night. And he had that the other. I haven't heard an update since then, but my
Wow.
point is that shalom is real. It's tangible. It's like a change in barometric pressure. It's like a change, total atmospheric change.
Right.
It's not the same as just, oh, I just feel peace in my heart. People will say that, oh, I feel peace in my heart. Any decision you make where you're no longer halt between two opinions, you're going to feel some measure of peace in your heart that you've made up your mind. You got to be really careful with these imitations that are meant to fool you, and you can fool yourself, really. And that's what these enemies, this is what these spirits are doing. They are getting us to agree. But getting back to what you were saying, perfect stillness and the quiet of the shalom is something that we are inviting the real, the authentic into. You will notice, however, that tares, no matter how much they say the words, they can never reach shalom.
That's true.
You have to watch it though, because you will see the restlessness. You will see them on the phone all the time. Even though the scripture is clear, come to the throne, not the phone. There's no scripture
Right.
that says go on the phone, but they're on the phone all day.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And what is it? What are you watching? You're watching wheat and tares. You just didn't know it.
You know the scripture that comes to mind?
Mm.
I believe it's in Isaiah 14. I gotta check. There is no peace, saith my Yahuwah, to the wicked. So if you lack peace, there's a wickedness, there's a root of bitterness, there's a root of unforgiveness. There's not you, generic you, me, anybody. Sometimes the lack of peace is a sign that you're acting wicked. There is no peace, says my Yahuwah, to the wicked. And that could be a
Well, and
believer.
I think
That
that
could
I
be a
think that
believer
that's a
that's
big
acting.
deal.
That could be a believer that's acting wickedly. It
I
doesn't.
was just going to say, you could be, listen, you could be in every way in your life doing fine, except maybe one area you're behaving wickedly, right? It happens. And then you could be being judged for that one area of wickedness, even though the other areas are fine. And so you're looking at the areas that are fine, going, "What do you mean?" And here in this one area, you're being wicked. You're not behaving yourself correctly. And one of the things I said to Yahuwah as a young man, and I just strongly encourage everybody to really consider this thought. And if you're a young person, you definitely want to consider this thought. And I prayed, and first of all, I prayed for patience, which everybody told me not to pray for patience. I still prayed for patience. So wisdom comes with patience. Sorry, you want to have wisdom, you're gonna have to have patience.
True.
Um, and so I knew that as a teenager, and I prayed for patience as a teenager. Yes, and I did pay for that, but I got patience as a result. But what I also learned is that you have to be courageous enough to ask Yahuwah to show you yourself, to be who you are, and to not try to be somebody you're not. One of the greatest areas of frustration for people is imitation. Authenticity is very free, very, very free. The freest people are people that don't care what you think about them. They're the freest people. If you think about it, it's the part that I think everybody was drawn to with Donald Duck. Is at least he was himself, and
True.
that much they could identify with, even though what they find out is not so great, and they think, oh my gosh, what did we do? But the thing that drew everybody in, and I think it still
Right.
does, is authenticity. At least he was himself. He was his real self. You know what I
But
mean?
I got a comment here. A lot of this, and I don't want to get political, but you brought it up before, gaslighting in past episodes.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about gaslighting. Okay,
Right.
so the movement that follows this individual, they have pictures, literally, memes and pictures. He's holding babies. He's carrying babies. He's rescuing them out of the fire, symbolic of Pizzagate and the PEDS, okay, and all that stuff. Turns out that when he's running the Miss USA pageant, the women were glad when he wasn't there because as the owner, he had the right to go in and inspect the merchandise before the merchandise was paraded out on public TV. In other words, in their nudity. Talk about gaslighting. He's got everybody convinced that Biden, Kamala Harris, all the libs. Okay, I don't care what their politics are, but if you're a lib, automatically you're a pedophile. While he has, oh my gosh, you talk about gaslighting. So gaslighting is a very, very seductive thing, and we see it right in front of our eyes. Now, I
Mhm.
understand these guys, the Democrats and the libs, have their own problems. I got that. Okay, they're all They got their own problems, but
They all
abortion,
have.
abortion, murder. But I'm talking about the guy that's there now. You talk about gaslighting. Oh my God! If you had to put a picture in the dictionary
Mm.
of a pedophile, that's all I'm going to say. And even the people that hate what I just said, in their heart, if they have 1 ounce of the ruach, they know I'm right. If they have 1 ounce of the ruach, that's gaslight.
I can't speak to that because I have no
Oh,
direct
I can.
evidence or
I can.
understanding of it.
I have hundreds of
However,
witnesses. Hundreds of witnesses.
however, I did read something that purportedly was written by an ex-girlfriend of the group, that little group, the Steen group. You know what I mean? And it was not very flattering. So I will say that there's probably a whole lot more to that than meets the eye. But what I think is most important about that, and I think the thing that we all can agree on, is that a person who is comfortable in their skin, who's good with wherever they are, that's a different person than someone who is trying really hard. Okay?
Right. Right.
So some people come to shalom in that they're going to hell, they're good with it, they've come to conclusion with it, they're not trying to get saved, they don't want to get saved, and they're fine with going to hell. That's reality, folks. Okay, there are people that will hold up a sign saying hell's going to be fabulous.
But I can testify based on my past that I didn't have peace. I had vending machines. I had sports. I had perversity. I had a lot of stuff. The one thing I didn't have, because that comes from another realm.
Yes.
That comes from another realm, and I was not allowed to touch the realm because that realm was kadosh.
When you make certain decisions, okay, let's go into this a little bit. When you make certain decisions as a man or a woman, and you come to conclusion on certain things, and you say, I'm going this way. Think of your life as an admin panel, and there's good and bad. And whichever way you go, the other side of the admin panel gets grayed out. Those buttons are no longer available to you. Same thing when you go this way. Depends on which way you're going. The buttons that are available to you are based on which direction you're going. There's the bad guy and the good guy. There's the carnal man and the man of the Ruach. And whichever one you're walking in, if you're walking in the Ruach, then a certain group of things are going to be available and a whole lot of things are not. They're going to be grayed out. And I think when we come to understand that, these are not light decisions. These are decisions that you make. They are lifelong. They are eternal. They're not political. They're not about being favored by people. They're not about getting up on something. They're certainly not meant to be used for manipulation. We saw that the man who came to the wedding supper without the right garments on was unceremoniously removed.
Yeah.
Okay, so this should scare us that any kind of fakery isn't going to make it before the king. Any kind of fakery. So the one thing that we should all be pressing toward is complete authenticity in everything we do.
But you're right. I mean, you're right. That's one reason that Mr. T over there in the Trump Tower uh, caught on with the American people is because of he was real. In other words, if someone is a jerk and they show you they're a jerk and they're proud of it, at least they're sincere and they're like, you're right. That drew a lot. That drew me initially. I was a Trump supporter for the first 2.5 years.
Hard not to like the guy in certain areas.
No. First 2.5. Well, guess what? He was my neighbor. I grew up in Jamaica, Queens. Okay, guess where he's from. So I not only supported him in his candidacy for the first 2.5 years, he had me completely gaslighted. I was drawn to, I'm a businessman. I don't need this. I got enough money. I'm doing it for you. I was drawn into that. But you can't live a lie forever, right? Okay, enough said about that. But the shalom that passes understanding, Philippians 4, is one of the greatest gifts of the Spirit that a person can receive. The rich, the famous, the wealthy, the Jeff Bezos of the world. They pay professionals $300 an hour to find 20 minutes of peace in a 24-hour cycle. We have it free, we have it consistently, and it is never withdrawn.
Billionaires trying to pay, billionaires
Yep.
trying to pay for
Yep.
what you who have come into the truth,
Yep.
who are keeping commandments, the mitzvot, and are
Yep.
staying in the place Yahuwah has called you.
Yep.
You have what billionaires are trying to find. I hope you're catching this.
That's true. If you look at these guys who are success in the eyes of the world, but they're unredeemed, right? You'll find a common thread, a discontent within, with severe inner demons / turmoil. Elon Musk. Listen, I'm not getting political, but I could look at Elon Musk
This
as
is
a
a great
man.
topic. Keep coming,
Listen,
bro.
listen,
This is right.
as a man filled with the Ruach, as Yahuwah lives, I could look at an individual and tell you roughly how many demons they have. I could look at Elon Musk, even if I love him, even if I love his car, even if you know that man is seriously demonically oppressed.
Right.
You can tell. Shalom. We take you were saying, and I'm saying the same thing. Shalom is something we take for granted, like a familiar spirit. It works against us, but it's kind of like a familiar spirit where we don't have a daily appreciation for the gifts that only the Ruach can give, right? And and anybody that's been through life and through the battles of life knows that shalom is not attainable. Let's make it clear. Let's make it clear. The peace of Yahuwah that passes understanding is unattainable.
It's a
except
gift.
one way, just like salvation. John 14:6. There's only one way, and that's why nobody has it, brother. That's why nobody has it, because they don't want to come that way. A few people, we do. The believers do. The elect, the very elect do. But everybody else, because they want it, right? They want it, but they want it some other way.
Changing the terms.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you're changing the terms, you're changing the recipe. One of the things we talk about all the time is, hey, you hand somebody a recipe and you say, hey, if you had 2 cups of flour and a cup of this and a cup of that, you're going to get this. And they go and they modify, they substitute. They do the substitute thing, right?
Yeah.
We substituted. How did it turn out? Not as good. What a shock. What a shock.
Bingo.
Because you change the recipe, I'm not responsible. And then what's really crazy is when they call you. Hey, I made that thing you told me to make. Oh, yeah, how did it turn out? Not as good as when you did it. Well, what'd you do? Well, we didn't have this, so we used this. And then we didn't have this, so we used this. Oh, well, you shouldn't have activated the plan. Why? Because the ingredients were listed on the card. And if you didn't have the ingredients, you were supposed to stop and go get them, not substitute. Yeah. So you changed it into a different recipe.
But
now you want to call me and actually hold me accountable for your changed recipe.
Right. But I want to help somebody that is a believer and they can't sleep, they can't eat, they can't enjoy the fruit of their labor. Here's your problem. It's right on the screen. There's your problem. There is no peace, saith my Yahuwah. Notice the personalization. Isaiah was personalizing. He may be your Yahuwah, but he's definitely my Yahuwah, right? There is no peace, saith my Yahuwah, to the wicked. Now, that doesn't mean you're not saved. It means there's 1 or 2 areas in your life that are stealing your shalom. And you got to admit you're wicked in those areas. You got to admit that.
And maybe your heart is, I want to fix it. So maybe you're one of those right now saying, bro, you're hitting me where I live, man. You're hitting me where I live. Okay. I want to fix this. I want to come into that shalom. And that's what we really want to talk about today, because we want to talk about the sorting of the wheat and the tares. And the difference between the sorting of the wheat and the tares is what they're pursuing. One of the things that we tend to think of is, we think in terms of salvation, and we think in terms of eternal life and what have you. And we also put these requirements on them, that religious requirements that we expect these people to fulfill. But Mashiach makes clear that he calls a certain group, they don't respond, so then he goes out and hits the highways and byways, right? So once he goes to highways and byways, bro, it's all bets are off time. Okay, so all the pre-qualifications you thought made or break, make or break the people that received, that's gone. So he took the spots and he said, "Oh, you don't want your spot? Okay, you're busy. Got it. I'm going to give your spot to somebody else who's not so busy, who understands that what's being offered is far more valuable and important than anything in this temporal realm."
Amen.
And when you finally get that message, you get free. In 2004,
Amen.
I started. I had to take a sabbatical, because again, as an example to leaders, if you're having some things going on in your life, you have to be the one to say, "I need to sit down so I can get this squared away."
That's right.
And that is integrity in action. I
Yes.
believe that is, in fact, a part of training for ministry that
Yes.
you cannot do any other way. It has to be literally live in the midst of it, and you have to sit down. And that's hard because, it parks your ego, it parks everything else that may be interfering. And in the process, I had to still make a living. I had to still learn, I had to go in a different direction. And then now, of course, later on, I figured out, oh, Yahuwah wanted me to go through this because I began to see how much of our world was controlled by certain elements. And of course, mammon being the biggest of them all. You can't function without it. You got to pay your bills. Everybody has to deal with this battle. And so, of course, I began to chase this down. But what I began to realize very quickly is how much lie was invested in this entire system, how much you had to lie or be a liar in order to be successful. So when you really started to look closely, you couldn't succeed in this world the way it was and still is, into a large degree, set up,
Right.
unless you were willing to compromise very, very serious things in who you are. And it was a process. And as a kid that grew up in the Bronx, you grew up in Jamaica, Queens, I grew up in the Bronx, poverty firsthand. It's even if you're wealthy, even if you grew up wealthy in New York, you still know poverty this close. You know what it looks like. You know what it feels like. And maybe
It's
you've
two
even
blocks down.
experienced.
It's two
Yeah.
blocks down.
Yeah. It's not even sometimes, and so, so you grow up almost wanting to, you're going to bust out. You're going to be the man, right? You're going to bust out of this. And I'll never forget, Sholiak, I went so fast and so hard, not me, not my personality, right? I went so fast and so hard. And I found myself in a place which I would have described it as wanting nothing at the time that I was doing. Oh, I'm wanting nothing. Look at me, man. I'm cranking it out. Me, Mr. Digital, Captain Digital. I was Captain Digital. Wow. Making the big bucks. And you know what? I had to walk away from all of that because I began to realize very quickly that it was all a trap.
Right.
And that the ego that it fed and the way that it messed with your thinking process was exponential. So the thing they got you chasing is actually your demise.
It's a thief. It's a thief.
It is beyond a thief. It will literally steal everything from you. And so I just believe that it's a very, very, very important time period to seriously repent. And somebody put up a comment here about Mr. Aw Shucks. And I think it's really sad that this continues to be a thing that continues to come up. But
let's talk about it. What's going on? I don't check the chat because I want to focus.
I think it's important because it's part of the discussion.
I'm not ignoring the chat. I want to focus on what you're saying, and I want to focus on what the Ruach is saying.
Well, I think this is what I don't want. Partly.
Yeah. I don't want people in the chat to get the wrong impression that we're ignoring them. I'm just saying, let's talk about it. Fine. Let's if that's what you know.
And it's like, hey, if you do something wrong, you should repent.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
If you say, hey, I'm going to do this for you, and then you don't do it, you got to go repent to that person. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there were things that unfortunately, um, you watch a person's life and you go, wow, it's just a game for you. See, the difference between the wheat and the tare is forever. Let me make it really simple for you.
Yeah.
The wheat and the tare, forever is the difference. The
Mm-hmm.
tare is for today.
Mm-hmm.
Wheat is for forever. When you look at it like that, you go, oh, wow. The people that come in and say, yes, I'm forever. I'm not going to sit next to Sholiak here, pretend to be his friend for a couple of years. And then, if he does something I don't like, publicly try to destroy him while I walk off. That's not a friend.
That's not a friend.
That's an
That's a
enemy who
that's a thief and
pretended
an
to be
enemy.
your friend and sat next to you. And then when the time came, when they wanted to make their economic break, that's when they did it. Okay. So this happens to me. It's been happening to me my whole life.
But that came
People
up in
have,
the chat, is what you're saying. Somebody brought
yeah,
up
yeah.
that.
And and again, because of the scripture says, when a man seemeth right till his neighbor comes to examine him. And we came to examine some things and went, whoa, whoa, whoa. We just found a pastor that we had to say, huh, you're not a pastor at all. We have to disconnect some things here with you because you're behaving in a way that is predatory. We do
And
not
let
endorse
me
predatory.
just say something. Let me just say something. I am an eyewitness to whoever that is. I don't know who it is. I'm not interested. I have seen the letters and the evidence where Peter reached out to this individual and say, "Let's talk. Let's talk.
Still reaching out.
Let's reconcile. Let's
Right.
even though you trash me publicly,
Yep.
let's reconcile. Let's no
And
response.
that is the
No
message. So
response. So
anybody want to deliver a
why don't
message?
you ask
That's the
him?
message.
Why don't you ask him while he is
Any day, anytime.
refusing Matthew 18? You
Right.
took the
Any
time
day, anytime.
you took the time to ask us. Why don't you ask him why he has reneged on every invitation that Peter has sent to him to sit down and reconcile this? Why don't you ask him the same question? We've
Right.
already answered you, and we have
Not only
I've
that,
seen
but
those letters, by the way. I've seen them with my own
not
eyes.
only that, but there have been people that jumped on that bandwagon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then did the homework. So first they jumped on the bandwagon. So this is
Yeah,
another person
yeah,
that jumped on the bandwagon, didn't do the homework.
yeah.
Go talk to the people that did the homework. This is one of the reasons why you don't, how do you know you're dealing with some very nefarious forces? They lie. This is number one. Okay, lying is probably the number one indicator. You don't need much more than that to know if you're dealing with wicked. But obviously, uh, everybody has their thing. I'm going to bring up a list here. I'm actually going to be doing a a um, a talk on this topic because I do believe that we are falling for very clever evil. Evil does not operate the way we think it does. Evil will smile at you. You think Adam and Eve were fooled by a red-caped, uh, wicked spirit? No, it came. It came in a certain way. It came at them as if it were there benevolently, and so just understand that is reality. But
Right.
I think it goes down to it keeps coming back to the the wheat and the tares. It really does. Because when you're dealing with authenticity, authenticity doesn't fake anything. So, like for example, me sitting here, if I reach the point where I'm like, I don't really feel like I want to do this with Sholiak anymore, I'm not going to go 2 more years. I'm not going to go 3 years, milk it, and then say, hey, no, and do some bushwhack to you. All that stuff is clear to me. It becomes very clear. this is not the Ruach of Yahuwah, especially when that other person, whoever it may be, is actually willing, says, hey, I'm happy to sit down with you and talk with you. People that have that kind of heart are not your issue. They're not the issue.
But an
It's not.
interesting thing in the parable in the parable of Matthew 13, where Yahusha talks about the wheats and the tares, one of the interesting things is that they both grow. I want to make that clear. It's not like one is retarded and one is growing in grace and knowledge of Adon Yahusha. No, the tare, if you don't curtail the tare, it will grow, and it'll grow right next to you.
Yep.
It'll grow
proudly.
It'll grow to the detriment of the people around the tare. Okay, because Yahusha said, "Let them grow together." Right.
So this person was not. Let me. I'm going to be blunt now.
In other words, why does Revelation say, "Let the liar lie still, let the unholy"?
This is reality.
Because the tares,
you're watching it.
The tares got to be cut and burned. Because if they're not,
you're watching it.
They exponentially grow in lies. They grow in darkness. It's an exponential growth until they allow the Ruach to curtail it. So it's not just the wheat that's gathered forever. No. The tares are allowed to increase in their filth until curtain time.
Bingo. And the reality is that if you don't gather with them, you're scattering. Now, some people are only going to gather onto themselves because there's financial benefit for it. Okay. And so that's what you're really dealing with. You're going to be dealing with this until the king comes, because it's the same battle that was battled in the first century. The same group of people out trying to make a living with the groups and the crowds. And here comes Mashiach ruining it. He's ruining the program.
That's true.
He's got them leaving the synagogues, got them on the side of a hill. And where were they bringing their tithes and their offerings? And not to the synagogues, because, there was a treasurer right there.
Yeah.
Okay. And so there were all kinds of issues and reasons why they got upset with Mashiach. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that he disturbed their economics.
Yeah.
And so
they got free food, right?
One of the things that I will definitely do to all fake ministers is I will mess with your economics. I will bust your economics up. I've been saying that since 1999. They didn't invite me to certain ministries because I would ruin their building project. Ruin it. We are not here to build buildings. We are here to build people. Okay? And the things that we made more important started to tear down. Secondly, there is an order. You cannot have 1 Corinthians 12 and just rip it out of your Bible. First apostles, secondarily prophets, thirdly teachers.
Man,
that means the teacher is not in charge. Sit down if you think you are.
That's right.
Okay? And
That's
here's another one for you, folks, because you guys are really struggling with what a wolf is. So let me help you out. A wolf pulls people from assembly. The end. So how do you know you've engaged a wolf? They're only interested in you gathering with them.
Correct. 100% correct. 1,000% correct.
Okay? Not with your brethren, not at a kadosh place, not united in one accord. The reason why they hate me is they can't control me. They can't manipulate me, and they can't take advantage economically of the 12-stone altar. I won't allow it. And that's why they're angry with me.
Nice. And the thing is, like you were saying, I touched on this yesterday. I says a teacher is not going to teach the kind of stuff that Kanachowski teaches, because a teacher will say, "What do you think? What are your comments? Please subscribe." Please, they do it for attention. They do it for clicks. Right. They are concerned about who's getting it, who's not getting it. Everything's open for discussion. Everything is open for debate. In other words, a teacher doesn't have the boldness to say, "Thus says Yahuwah," and if he shows us something differently, then we'll say, "Thus said Yahuwah" again, right? right? He's adding or he's modifying. Thus saith Yahuwah. A teacher is not a thus saith Yahuwah person.
That's right.
A teacher is someone who will
take an apostolic word and unpack it for you,
and he will reason with the people.
But
right,
he'll take an apostolic word and unpack it.
A sholiach will not reason with the people. A sholiach will say, "This is the burden of the word of Yahuwah.
This is the word of Yahuwah, like it or not.
This is the maaseh." And by the way, here's something for you. The Hebrew word for burden, as in the burden of the word of Yahuwah, is the same word as tithe. Maaseh, maaseh, maaseh Yahuwah. The burden of the word, maaseh Yahuwah le malachi. The burden of the word of Yahuwah to Malachi. Why is that the same word as tithe? Because where the treasure is, that's where the burden is. Come on.
Now, here's a good one for you, folks. So this will help you separate the wheat and the tares. How do you say we're supposed to love them? Very simple. With a heart. Okay, so we got the heart part. Mind. Okay, so that's renewal of the mind. Soul. That's your mind, will, and emotions. And strength. How do you demonstrate that? Yeah. Oh, that's physical. And that's translated into what do you do with your day, your week, your month, and your year with your hand and your mind to produce anything. And so he gets the first of your produce. You can't escape this. It can't be run away from. You can just justify going to hell. That's all. You can rationalize your way right to hell. But you can't change his ways. You can't change his kingdom. And the Sholiach just told you another secret, that you can't hide. Your hand is not hidden from Yahuwah. I'm sorry, but what you are supporting is going to be evident before him. And so when you get something in your hand and the first thought, it tells everything about you. Everything about you. I'll never forget, some woman was sitting in a car and I was watching. I don't know how these things come across my channel, Sholiach, but this lady's doing this meme and her husband says to her, "If I won the lottery, what would you do?" She says, "I would leave you. I would take half and I would just go live my life in peace." And he goes, "Oh, well, it's your lucky day. I won $40. Here's your 20." Right? So all this time sitting right next to him was total betrayal, waiting for just the right moment, economic moment, to get out of that person's life. Think about that for just a minute. It was funny, but not so funny.
But the reason they cannot control an apostle is he has that prophetic breakthrough walls apostolic anointing.
That's right.
And he's not doing it for likes, clicks, hit the subscribe button, tell us what you think. Even if you disagree with us, tell us what you think, because we'll have 2 hours to engage you. So we want to hear from you. I don't want to hear from nobody. You know why? Because I was put on this earth to deliver what he showed to me. Not that I'm perfect, but when he shows something to me, it's coming to you. I withhold nothing. That's why apostle, he runs with it. And like you said, the teacher or the evangelist will unpack what the forerunner was committed to run through and break. Look, when I first started teaching on the two houses, there was 3 or 4 people teaching this: Scott Diffenderfer, Angus and Batya Wooten, and myself. We were forerunners. And now everybody's unpackaging it their own little way, which is fine. So that's why, getting back to what you were saying, that's why you can't control an apostle. You can't. The only thing an apostle, that's why the apostles left out of church structure. That's why the apostles are left out of Nazarim structure. That's why the apostles are relegated doctrinally to, they passed away on the Isle of Patmos and some kind of weird theory, because they don't want to deal with you. Why don't they want to deal with you? Because they cannot be controlled. Why can't they be controlled? Because the zeal of Yahuwah Sebaot consumes them. Like it consumes no other office.
That's right. And by the way, the flying monkeys that want to come on behalf of other people have the courage to go back to the people that sent you. So go back to that wicked witch and say, "Hey, why don't you have the courage to go? I had the courage to go talk to him. How come you don't have the courage? Come on. Let's have a chat. Let's go through the facts. Let's go through what you said, somebody said, or this and that. Because as it turns out, what you called a lie ended up you were wrong." and the things that you deceive people about, they're coming back for
But
you.
but in
Maybe that's the
Matthew,
reason why you're sitting out there going, and you know what? The pressure's going to stay on because the king is coming, and he's not running for king; he is king. And
yeah.
if you lied, which you did, you need to repent.
But why? Here's something we can discuss. Why in Matthew 13, and I have my own thoughts, but why in Matthew 13 does Yahusha say, let the tares grow exponentially, significant growth, with the wheat? In other words, I'm not going to pull them out until the end of the age and burn them in bundles. Why? Or let me rephrase that. What benefit is it to the believer and to us as leaders to allow these tares to not only remain,
Agreement.
but to grow?
We're coming into agreement with Yahuwah. So what's happening is we're experiencing the very same thing he experienced. Betrayal at his table. Okay? He puts someone beside him and that person betrays him. Right? Everything you're experiencing is a mini version, a microcosmic version of everything Yahuwah has experienced himself. You are coming into identification with him. This is what makes you a great witness. Because you're saying, wait a minute, you know what? Not only, now I know. You did, hold on. I gave you this and you betray me. I just canceled, just now, $600 thing I had to pay every year. Just had to cancel it because I'm not paying it anymore since the person walked off. But I'm like, wow, I had to cancel it because I couldn't even afford it. And I was like, you know what? I never could afford it. But I was doing it out of love, right? And you're going, oh my goodness, and it's interesting to me how that's the kind of way in which he separates us. He lets us go through this so that we can feel that betrayal. We can feel it. All right. And then we can feel what it's like to have somebody that you poured into, you love them. Man, you would be willing to do anything for them. Anything. They could call you tomorrow, even after all that they did. Okay? Gerald Thomas could call me tomorrow. And say, Peter, I'm sorry, brother. I didn't mean it. And he could say, oh, and I'd be like, we're good. We're good. Thou art forgiven. Because that's already in my heart. See what I mean? Not about money and nonsense. It's about brethren. And authentic behaves authentically. Forever is forever. You stood up in front of people and said, this is my friend, and then ditched that person, you got to live with that.
I'll be honest with you. It was such a charade. I'll be honest with you. That you're a busy person for Yahuwah, praise Yah. And I couldn't get a hold of you. And I said to him, I said, listen, see if you can contact. And he would get a hold of you. You allowed that man access, and he can't even pick up the phone now and try to work things out.
That's right.
I didn't have access to you. I had to go through him.
That's right. You remember that.
I do.
In fact, I didn't take your emails or messages. You had sent me a few of them, and I had been so busy. And I get messages from people, and that happens. And so I was like, I don't know this person. Do you know him? And he vouched, he's like, oh, yes, he's the one with the receipt. I was like, oh, right, okay. And I started kind of putting two together, and I was like, and I started feeling more comfortable. So absolutely, he literally called me or wrote to me one day and literally said to me, reach out to you, right? So clearly influential, clearly got no problem, and anything he needed. I don't know how we got on this topic, but anything needed, we responded. The problem is that if we respond, then you can't go out there and fundraise from 50 other people.
See, the tear, here's the problem with the tear. Unless the tear has an awakening or a partial burning, we know the tares are going to be burned at the end of the age.
That's right.
But
and teaching lies that you're going to die, you soul sleep. That's a lie.
Let me try to put it this way: a tear that awakens, so they say, I've been a tear, and I've got to reconcile Matthew 6, Matthew 18, and I could be reinstated. In other words,
Right.
Yahuwah gives a tear the opportunity not to be burned, but they're going to have to be burned with the fire of holiness, Isaiah chapter 4, with the
Mhm.
spirit of holiness that'll purify the filth of the daughters of Zion. And I don't know if a lot of tears are capable of a self awakening. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know.
So we have David and I were going to be talking about this later on this week, brother. And I want to talk a little bit about it. Just drop it here at the Apostles at the Gate, because we have this self-reflection tool that's really kind of going in that direction. And we're radical, man. We go after. We're trying to fish for men, man. We're like, will this lure work? Will this lure work? Like, get them to look at the scripture, get them to think about things. And I mean, that's the preaching. That's what the gospel is. It's the good news, and telling them the truth before they destroy themselves. But one of the groups that we have the biggest problems with, if you've ever run across narcissists or narcissistic personality disorder, you cannot correct a narcissist. Okay, a person who believes themselves to be perfect, or like they don't believe that anybody can correct them, anybody has authority in their life, nobody can fix a thing. They are independent islands who need no one. This is called narcissism, people.
Big time.
Okay, this is cuckoo. All right, even Mashiach didn't do that. The greatest of all of us came and picked 12 friends. Come on.
But would a person? I have a question.
All by myself thing is not so.
Would a person that constantly refuses help, they're born again,
right?
They have the ruach, but they have a pride, ego. They constantly refuse help. Would that person qualify as a narcissist? They don't want help.
And I'll tell you what, they're getting really close now. If you do a evaluation and you say to someone, listen, I think you have NPD. I think you have narcissistic personality disorder. I think you got a problem. All right. You're not going to get anywhere with that person. They're going to dismiss you because that's part of the disease.
Right.
So you got to find a different way. And that's one of the things that we're actually working on, is finding a different way to sort of break the bad news without being in the room, so that they find out so that the ego doesn't get destroyed immediately, because that's the problem. It's an overgrown ego. It's an ego that literally went way too far. And you need that ego put in the dirt, until you're humble again, and then you can be used by Yahuwah. But until then, they're going to go off proudly and continue to be proud in front of the king, which is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Crazy. And then the bad things that start to happen to them, they'll blame those things on the person
who they wouldn't allow it to help them. Yeah.
They're going to blame me now. Watch. They're going to blame me when the stuff, he'll take them out. He'll take them off the earth.
But is a sign of
it's not a light matter.
Is a characteristic of a narcissist also someone who, in other words, you cannot talk about anything, sports, politics, spiritual things, without them saying, well, I already knew that, or let me show you something that you don't know. In other words, they always inject themselves. You could be talking about the price of coffee in Colombia,
and it suddenly is about them.
And suddenly, well, I used to, and I know more about coffee than the growers, and they always insert.
That I used to be a grower.
I've met people, and there are people close to me. You cannot have a conversation without them personalizing it. In other words, some things are not about you.
I know.
Who's batting cleanup for the New York Yankees? Okay,
I used to play shortstop.
It's not about you. Yeah, but exactly. Now you got it. It drives me nuts. But when these people are close to you, they're your kin. We're laugh, but what happens when they're your brother, biological brother? You can't get away from stuff like that. It can drive you nuts.
Yeah. And the separation part, I think, is natural. So for example, there's a whole lot of folks that completely miss the message that has been basically being broadcast, called reconciliation. Reconciliation means check the books. Doesn't mean everybody's good, by the way. That's not what it means. It means check the books. It means you got a bank statement, but your ledger balance was different than what the bank says. Time for reconciliation. That's what that means. So it's not necessarily that everything's going to be awesome. Sometimes it's just check the books. So, by the way, anybody that's got a question on that, feel free to come to me, and I'll be happy to help you with that. We had recently, we saw this the other day. You wrote to me and said, hey, is this guy out here saying he can't cash something out, or what's the deal, with the shekel or whatever? What's going on? I said, I don't know. The button's right there on his screen. And you wrote back, because we do that, by the way, guys. You can't come at one. You're going to deal with the whole alliance, okay? Just so you know. That's the way that works. And it's like a contest. Who's going to respond first? And we're like, wait a second. We would all take care of this, by the way. Any one of us would, even if there were a problem. But there isn't. You're making a mountain out of nothing. And the person, of course, sheepishly, oh, I'm so sorry. No, someone told me that was a problem, but and then they didn't even do it. They didn't even liquidate it. It's like, are you kidding me? You went through all of that and you didn't even go get, are you joking me right now? Lashan lahara. Okay? And so that's what you're dealing with a lot of there. It's the butthurtness of those that are not chosen or who were not selected. Do you know there's a whole lot of people more people were not chosen as apostles than were? And there was a lot of them that weren't happy about that.
So okay, let me recap here. So, because I don't want to get too far off course. So, I asked you a question, and you're answering it very well. The wheats are there to mature us as individuals,
yes,
and as potential leaders, because that's part of the training tools of the master is rejection and overcoming it. Betrayal and overcoming it, being hated and learning to deal with hatred without a cause. Okay.
Correct.
The second temple was destroyed because of hatred without a cause. Well, John 13 tells us that was the hatred of Messiah, right? Without a cause. Okay. So let's not cut those tears, and as mature believers, not just leaders, in a perverted way, be thankful for the tears, because that's part of the plan. Like you were saying.
That's right.
That's part of the plan.
You can't become who you're called to be. You're never going to be a butterfly without the cocoon. You're never going to be a champion without the training camp. The training camp is all about resistance. It's all about teaching you what you're going to face when you get in that fight. And you got to go through 100 rounds to prepare for 10. Okay? You got to go through 200 rounds, 300 rounds, who knows how many, just to get ready for 10. And that, to me, is a great picture. There's not all sports is unvaluable. Paul used a reference of beating the air. There's some value to sports because it challenges the individual to challenge themselves. That is the ultimate of all of it, is that we are challenging ourselves and looking deeply. And even if you screwed up, let's say Peter screwed up. Peter is the biggest screw up you ever met. Let's just say that. Okay, so he gets no grace. You're not going to try to forgive this guy or recover this guy. Wow. So let's just work that through. Let's just say that that's the case, that this guy's gone off the deep end, man. He's in deep trouble. I don't know what's happened to him. He's gone, man. We're worried about Peter. Pick up the phone. Pick up the phone. Give him a call.
To him, not to everybody else.
Yeah. And 612-564-2777. Feel free. Okay? Drop me an email. Come on over into Facebook and drop me a note. I usually respond to those within a day. Okay? So feel free to come and express your concern, but do it legitimately. Don't be a fake who's doing a drive-by. You really care? Get over here.
That's
Get
very
over
true.
here, you caring person. Okay? I'm in a ditch. Come get me out. Come on, where's your tow truck? Huh? See, talk is easy. Get over here and help me. Yeah,
So
no.
actually,
Come put your arm underneath me, pick me up out of the ditch like Sholiak and I do weekly with people. Now, you think I or him, Sholiak, or anybody has got a problem? That's the time you get in your car. That's the time you pick up your phone. That's the time you come. We're inviting you. Come, please help us. Okay? Even if you got to yell at me, come yell at me. Come on, come yell.
Acts
Love me enough to come yell at me.
Acts 14:22. Through much tribulation, thlipsis, like you always say, choices.
That's right.
We must enter the kingdom of Yahuwah. So
That's right.
it seems to me that the tares are left there as a prerequisite to whether or not we're going to be able to enter the kingdom of Yahuwah. So they're there for our benefit if we learn how to handle them.
You
If we
said
learn how to,
that.
and the only way to learn how to handle them is to have them rise up next to you, not 10 miles down the road, but rise up.
You can't do it that way, guys. Yea and yea, nay and nay is what the king said, right? Let your yea be yea. Let your nay be nay. So if you said yes and then it's no, everything else cometh of evil. Look at that. Real nice and easy. Wow. Okay, wait a minute. What, you mean everything? Not everything. So if it's not yea and nay, not yea and nay. It's not up and down, not up and down. Not yes or no, no.
Okay.
Then what is it? It's evil.
So you're saying you're allowed to change when it comes to learning, doctrine, understanding, but when it comes to covenant and forever relationships, you are not allowed to change the yea. You're not allowed to change the yea into a may yea or maybe or may yea.
Nope.
You can't do that.
There's no I'm evaluating button.
So, but we want people to understand, though, you can change doctrinally.
Mm-hmm.
You can change eschatologically.
Yeah.
You can change your Christology.
Yeah.
Okay. That doesn't make you an undesirable. But when it comes, when Yahuwah has joined together,
bingo,
which is rare, but what he has joined together, you better not. If you're a man, you better not pull it asunder.
And that includes the people in the joining. That's not just people outside the joining.
Right.
That's the person inside the joined group. So if it's a marriage, what Yahuwah joined together, no man puts asunder.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And it's very difficult to deal with because you're now up against it. This is the unstoppable force meets the immovable object, right?
Right.
And all of a sudden there's a confrontation, except Yahuwah wins always.
Have you ever run across, you've been in the ministry for 30 years, have you ever run across a dyed-in-the-wool tear, a real tear, someone who not only tore your friendship, but tore other people? Tear, get it? T-E-A-R.
Yes, I have run across them.
Have you ever run across a tear that was a functional tear, meaning generational? That's all. They were expert at breaking up covenants. Okay. Have you ever seen a tear come to their senses and become a light? Not repent. No. I'm not asking you if you've ever seen a tear repent. My question is, have you ever seen them by self-examination and with the Ruach HaKadosh turn themselves into a lifelong wheat?
No. The answer is no. We try these long shots. Why are you calling me out like that?
I'm not. Me? No, I'm not. I'm saying I want to know because I've never seen it.
We try these long shots because we keep thinking maybe there's a chance that we could turn one of these tears into wheat. But the reality is, every experiment we have, it's like alchemy. It's like trying to turn lead to gold. It doesn't work. We can't do it. It can't be done. All we can do is look for the authentic. That's it. And what we are learning is how to disseminate, or how to distinguish rather, because once you put them to the test, and some of them are very good at lying. they'll go 2, 3 years of lying, and then finally the lie ends. Finally, they're like, "Oh, I'm so sick of you. Finally, I get to tell you I don't really like you." And it's like, "Wow, what were you doing for a couple years there? What were
But
you?"
that's not my issue. My issue is, can a tear become a wheat?
That's my
Theologically,
point. It cannot
theologically
be done.
and experientially.
It cannot be done. I can't see it.
I want to tackle it theologically and or experientially.
Theologically, it makes no sense, because if you were to say that, the very fact that there are tears come from origin. So remember how the tares were among the wheat. Where did they come from? From the very seed they were. They were literally from seed. They were tares. This is not like a decision they made halfway up the growth process that they could repent for. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah,
not the prodigal son who's happened to be in a pig pen who now needs to come home. That's the different. He was wheat all along. He's got dirty wheat. He went and got dirty, and he needed to come home. But that's not the same as somebody who is never ever going to turn. They're not his. They only use his name for benefit, for money, for money. Okay, that is their reason. And I'm sorry, but that's reality. And a lot of them are not there yet. So some of them are working their way up. You're going to see them. First, they start off with a bunch of pictures and videos and try to endure you, build an audience, and then they come and they hit you, right? Because that's how it works. It's the old 1-2 Nigerian punch. But folks, that's not how Yahuwah works. Everything is an apostolic house. So let me just, please, just help you. He is the chief apostle. He sent out apostles. Then all the other gifts feed from that.
exactly.
If the apostle's not there, where does the evangelist drop off the new believer? Where's the pastor setting up house? Where's the teacher running his classes? Where's the prophet coming to deliver the prophetic word? Everything critically depended on that apostle doing his job. When they decided they didn't need the apostle anymore, and they could just do this on their own with marketing, yeah,
It all started. Everything collapsed. Yeah,
we ended up with 45,000 denominations.
collapse.
So,
So
we want to
theologically,
or do you want to turn around and do this the right way?
theologically, from the seed, a tear can put on a show
Mm-hmm.
for 90 years, but in the end, they remain a tear.
That's right.
And and experientially would be the same thing, because it's an embed situation. It's embedded in their DNA. Gotcha.
He uses these things to test us. Money is used a lot. A lot. Mammon is a big one.
Let me just say one thing about
mammon is the root of all evil, so he uses it.
Before you go on about money, I want to say something. Some of the folks that are listening, and I'm the same way, when we think of money, thievery, stealing, dishonest ministers, leaders, charlatans, we think of money.
Mm-hmm.
Let me explain what I mean. Money ain't money. Not the way you teach it. I'm talking about something else. When we think of ministers and leaders that are in it for the money, we think of massive transfers of wealth to lust it onto themselves. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But a tear can be dishonest in worldly things and all they have is $10. Somebody gives them $9. They're dishonest. They don't want to work. Somebody else gives them $11. We're talking about small sums. Here's the problem with the money accusation. The human psyche thinks of big sums of money.
Right.
Some of the people, but wait a second. Some of the people we're talking about are dishonest with $9. And that's part of the aw shucks routine. Hey, man, I'm not like Martinez. I'm not asking you for 10%. I'm asking you for $5 to get to Texas for gas. But I'm asking you every week, but in a way that's so subtle that it's more like a prayer than an outright beggar request. So what I'm trying to say is, those who are slick operators, they realize if I can get 15 people to send me $10 every week for gas and for my critters, for dog food, I'm not begging money like Konachowski and Martinez, because those pseudo apostles want a 10% tax. So look at me. Look at me. You see me now, Peter?
I'm much better
I'm
than
not
you.
asking for 10%.
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
take
better than you.
I'll take
So
10
I'm
bucks.
morally superior.
I'll take $10 so I can buy dog food, but I
Yeah.
have to beg you for the $10. Friends, it's not the amount that makes you a charlatan. It's the spirit. That I tell you to tithe because you got to. You signed up to be a citizen of the kingdom. You ain't got no choice. Your strength in the
Here's
shema.
another thing.
Your
Does it
strength.
depend on your need? Is the tithe dependent upon the need of the minister? Let's just say that, right? Because did Moshe need them to give that? Was he personally saying, I need your giving? No, it was about them needing to be faithful.
Right.
They gave so much
But we are
that
so.
he had to command them that they stop giving.
But Peter, but my point is, yes, you're correct. But my point is, believers are so easily fooled, i.e., carnal. Believers, that if the amount is small, they think there's no chicanery. That's my point.
Yes.
So if I ask, one second, if nobody knew me, if this was the first time they were tuning in, right? They didn't know me or you, and I said, listen, my wife hasn't bought a pair of shoes. Could you guys? We're in the ministry. Can you help us? $9. I'm gonna send her to the discount store. Yeah, they'll send you $9. But so you could be a thief, you could be a charlatan. Oh shucks, with small amounts.
With small amounts.
Small amounts.
And again, you can change the congregation of the saints that are being provided for into animals that are being provided for. You can change a lot of things very subtly without people noticing. You just made a little shift, okay? Because people were supporting, a whole house that was doing something. Now we're doing this.
Now I'm going to say
So again,
something.
it's a very common thing. It happens all the time.
I'm going to say
30 years I've been at this, so nothing new. But I got to tell you, it continues to surprise me how easily people are fooled by Ananias and Sapphira.
I'm Peter. Let me say something here. People, okay, wait a second. Now I forgot what I was. Oh man, I can't stand that. Oh yes,
You,
yes,
you got to
yes.
interrupt
I
me,
got it.
don't
I got it. Okay, I got it. I'm gonna hold it. Now watch. And I don't care if this gets people upset, because it's going to get you. It's going to get a lot of people upset. When you can cry and weep and moan and groan when a critter dies, or an animal, a dog dies, man's best friend.
you?
That's a lie.
Cancel
That's
broadcast
a lie.
for it.
It's a
Don't
lie.
even minister to saints.
Wait. That's a lie. Yahusha is man's best friend.
Yeah.
Oh, your dog is man. That's man's best friend. No, Yahusha is man's best friend. Now, if you could shed tears and go into a 10-day depression because you lost your animal,
But don't care about your brother.
when was the last time you shed 2 tears for souls?
Mm-hmm.
The same individual has no ability to cry. Spurgeon said, C.H. Spurgeon said, if you can preach the gospel without tears in your eyes for the lost, you're not called. Go home.
That's why we're trying to save people that you're like, can you really save them? Well, probably not, but we're still trying. It's the tears. It's the tears, man. It's the crying that you're going to do, and you already know you're doing it. You're doing it inside. You're doing it outside. It stops you. And the reality is that not everybody loves, okay? Fact is that anybody that truly loves you wants you with your breath.
You can make a person can make fun. A person can make fun of Jimmy Swaggart all they want. False altars, false names. We got all that. Okay. Now let's move past that. We found out now. We found out.
What?
He left tons of cash. Listen to me. To orphans, widows, suffering ministries in Africa. They just found that out in his will. His family was shocked. They thought they were going to get all the money for Family Worship Center in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. No. Most of his money went to specifically, he named Dorothy in Texas. Annie in Louisiana. All right? Think about that. We weep for souls, not for animals. If we weep for animals and we can't weep for souls, there's a different something's broken in our ruach.
Not only that, but and yes, we have been blessed, and we have been much baruch to come into the name. We've been much baruch to come into knowledge and understanding. But remember, it would be the only 10 that was needed to save all of Sodom and Gomorrah. And so sometimes we think, everybody's got to be on the same page. No, not necessarily. You need to understand your assignment. You need to understand your calling. I know that because I am faithful with what Yahuwah called me to do, even though somebody might be disappointed with me or think maybe you did something wrong. Listen, I invite you to come talk to me. You who are concerned, and come be my friend, and come say, Peter, here's my issue or what have you. Why? Because I'm at a post and I don't want to get thrown, I don't want to get destroyed either. So if you see something in Sholiak or I, you're welcome to call. But understand that we know we're here on our posts, on our various positions, to be found faithful there. Where other people are, what they're doing, that's on them. So a lot of times they don't see the reason why Yahuwah does certain things. There's a reason why there's a guy sitting at the power plant every day. And you don't want that job. You don't want to be the guy that has to get up in the middle of the night to fix the transformer when the storm is in and it's raining and there's lightning and you're the guy they call. You don't want that job, no matter what they pay you. That's why it's so hard to hire people for that job. And that's in your society. And everybody benefits from the electricity. But it's that one guy that's got to get up at 3 a.m. and he's got to go out in the storm and fix your transformer so your food does not spoil in your fridge.
Right, right, right. And when we understand that, we begin to thank Yahuwah for the apostles,
that
because
one guy. Yeah.
they're hard to find. True, you could ask anybody, and everybody will agree with this, that it's been in the faith for any length of time. True apostles are hard to find, and the other fourfold have done their best not to define an apostle so that you wouldn't recognize one when you saw one. Let me say that again. Those four, in order to maintain control, have not defined what an apostle looks like and functions like, so that when you encountered a real one, you were not able to discern it. The other fourfold have not properly defined it. So the definition has to come from the Spirit.
Listen, if we return, can I just tell you this, guys? If the will of the people that's being prayed for right now, who bought the Restine, who are even the other versions, I don't care, and they're all crying out for a return of the first century ecclesia model, right? The way that he intended it, it destroys the American system completely. Right. It is antithetical. So the American system is anti first century ecclesia, and by extension anti-Mashiach.
Right.
So you don't fix that, you leave it. That's right. The reality. When they could flirt, well, as long as I get to come over here and everybody loves me and everything is great, then fine. But if you start to preach things that I don't like, well, then I'm leaving and I'm going to take people with me. You're a wolf.
So, but not only people are tares, right? We think of people as tares, calf backing on what you just said. There are systems that are tares. So, tares function well in a system of tares. But in order to hold the tares, there have to be system of tares. Yes, they grow next door to the wheat. That's true. Or sit next to the wheat in church. But their tares cannot be limited to individuals. They're also systemic.
That's right.
Tares. The first step is to come out of that system so that you could be reasoned with. See.
And that's reality. And see, tears only want to look good. That's the thing. So when I see behind the scenes, like you asked me this question, and I've seen this multiple times, and this is a very bad sign. So when I get on a broadcast with people or what have you, and the broadcast ends, Sholiak is the same guy on off air, same person, doesn't change. You could switch the button on and off, and the conversation really wouldn't have changed any, except that you're recording us now. That's it. Other people I've watched something different. And this case that we were just talking about was a huge one, where it was toward the end that I started going, whoa, dude. And it was almost like, well, I'm all done with that stupid stuff. Bunch of dummies. And you're just like, I didn't know. What did you just say? And you go and you realize that it's all an act, man. It's all an act. They got that whole nice guy thing down. And by the way, they hate wearing it. Okay? They hate wearing that nice guy thing. So as soon as they can, they take it off. And they do. And they show it to you. And I saw it. I've seen it 3 times in the last year. 3 times. People that have been on broadcast with me. I've seen it. And Sholiak, Moshe, passes with flying colors. He's a total legitimate, authentic person. He don't care what you think. He's going to tell you what he believes. I love this man. I'm going to testify on his behalf behind the scenes because the others didn't pass this test. I'm just letting you know. So you want to know a little hint? When the camera's off, watch. Okay, this is my little hint to all of you. Some of you are going, oh, wow, is that what you saw, Peter? Yeah, that's what I saw. I saw when the camera went off, different guy.
I'm going to say something that I shouldn't say, but it doesn't matter. I'm an apostle. When there were other individuals with you on the past, right, broadcast, the Ruach said to me, it wasn't Moshe Kanachowski, it was the Ruach saying, they don't belong there. Now, I have no authority. I wasn't close enough to Peter to share that. It would be inappropriate. Then the Ruach said, you will be there. You will be number one, that those individuals don't belong there. You belong there. Now I kept that in my heart. I never shared that with you. That's so right. I knew something was not legitimate. That's enough. I don't want to say more than that. But and then I shared that with you and then I said, wait a second, maybe I'm jealous. Wait a second.
I needed to go through that though, guys.
I said, wait a second. I said, let me take stock of my spirit.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at that though. Good point. Go ahead, bring that out.
Maybe I want to be on with Peter. And maybe I'm jealous. So
I'm just jealous.
Let me make sure it's Yahuwah telling me that person shouldn't be there. I'm going to put you there. Or if I'm jealous, I had to examine myself as best as I could. And no, it was the Ruach. It was. It came to pass. It came to pass. I said, would you like to do a broadcast? You said, anytime, any place. I said, anytime, anytime. What time? You pick the time.
That's right.
That was an open door. That was a confirmation.
It doesn't get any more open than that. And you walk through it. And look, I'm an Aquarius. I know people don't do astrology and all that. I get it. I'm not really into it either. But I know personalities. And certain personalities are the way they are. And I clock. That's what I do. I clock patterns. I clock you. I clock everybody. You can't come into my presence and I don't clock you. Okay? I clock everybody. And I clock all your patterns and I watch because I've had to survive to get to here. I grew up in New York City. If you don't learn how to watch your back with eyes behind your back, you don't survive. Okay? And especially pretty. You're not going to leave pretty. Okay. Right. So reality is that you learn to discern. And I needed to go through this last fall because the Matthew 18 protocol needed to be written.
True.
King puts me in situations where he stirs me up, usually gets me angry. I don't know why he does that, but he does. And it's a zeal of Yahuwah begins to eat you up. And so, and as soon as I finished the Matthew 18 protocol, when I wrote that document and I was done writing it, the shalom I got, and I was just like, oh, so this was what this was all about. He forged it in fire.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Forged it in fire. He said, nope, I'm putting this in the fire. I'm getting it real hot. And I'm going to make a big deal out of this. And I'm going to put it right there in the middle of the remnant. You will obey Matthew 18 and you will do it correctly. If you've got a problem with your brother, you call your brother. That's why I got all kinds of evidence. I got a whole pile of evidence because I'm standing before my king and I want him to see, yep, you did your part, Papi. You did good. You did good. You've been reaching out. Papi. You've been doing good.
I have told people.
Not reaching back. I got you. I see what's going on. This is all I care about. I just care that Yahuwah sees. I'm only explaining it to you guys because it came up.
I have told
I wouldn't have heard this.
Yeah. Before we get back to the tares and the wheat, I have told people to I've said, and I'm going to tell you this because I've counseled people. I said, put the man to the test. I says, you think this, you think that, you think this, you think that, you're doing Lashon Hara. I said, put the man to the test. Fly down the portal, and ask him to meet you at the altar that he talks about.
I'll meet you at the airport 2.5 hours away and come get you.
But you know what the response is? I would if I could, but I have no money. Oh, but you have enough money to go online and run a man's character down.
I'll pay for it.
But you don't. Yeah, I told them that. I told them that.
Now we got no excuses.
But they still said, well, I don't have money. I said, but the man, I said, if I heard him correctly. So in other words, look, the tear, you and I as mature believers and others who are mature believers listening today, we need to thank Yahuwah not only for closed doors, but for tears that are allowed to mature us. And you hit a key word, I think the key word of the whole session today, and I love the way certain things are put, is the word resistance. If you don't learn how to fly through turbulence, you can't be a pilot.
That's right.
That resistance is a blessing. And when we learn to realize that's what makes us Yisrael, we stop cursing the blessing and say, okay, it hurts, but I'm a better apostle for it. Or it hurts, but I'm a better brother to my future brothers. There's less likelihood that I will betray them like I did in the past. And I've told you that before.
That's right.
I split and burned bridges over stupid stuff, calendars,
dumb things.
If you said
I would not have broken up with it.
If you said Yahweh, listen. If you said Yahweh instead of Yahweh, I'd burn that bridge. If you said Yahweh instead, or Yahweh or Yahusha, whatever, I would look to burn bridges. That showed my zeal without maturity. So
I think that's a great way to put that. I'm so glad you said that.
We need those tears. We need those tears. That's why Yahuwah left them there. We need them. Resistance.
You just said it, though. You said, I was showing my zeal. I was showing everyone how zealous I am by my disconnecting from people.
Right.
What is that?
Right.
But it's real. That's a real thing. I've watched it. There's like a stage you go through. And in that stage, when you're first coming to the truth, you love everybody because you're just learning. So you just love everybody. But then after you learn a little bit, then there's this like stage where you're like this, mean mugging. I don't know what's going on. You're mean mugging everybody. Like, you're not right. You're not right. You're not right. It's like you know enough to be in trouble. I don't know. It's weird. And then if you get through that, and I know, Sholiak, you've seen this too. People get through it and then they mature and they're like, never mind. I was a little rough last year. I was a little abrasive, a little difficult because I was going through. I was scolding myself. And as I was scolding other people, really what I was saying is you keep the Sabbath, but I was scolding everyone else. And I made myself a pariah in the process. It's a weird process, but if you can stop yourself from it and just get through it and then come to the other side, you're going to become much more reasonable. Just like he says, come, let us reason together. Guess what? Ruach comes into you. Guess what? Ruach comes into you. You start going, you know, you're right, I'm right. Let's see. How about we reason together? Huh? How about we reason together? We're not preaching. Now, if we were preaching and the unction was on, that'd be different, but we're just talking. And why can't we be brethren just talking? And here's the thing, the reason why you're going to see Sholiak and I together to the end, because neither one of us will break the peace by the grace of the King. You don't break the peace, it stays forever. Doesn't mean we're not going to have, he might get irritated with me. I don't know. I mean, I have irritated everybody else in my life. I'm sure it'll be him too at some point. And I'm sure he's irritated people in his life.
I'm more mature now than I was 10 years ago when I was gone with the second or third offense. Yeah.
There it is. There it is. Some people have no ability to handle the interactions at certain levels. They got no business at that level. That's all that reveals. It doesn't mean they're not saved. It doesn't mean they're not good people. It doesn't mean they're not believers. It means they're messing around with grown folk business and shouldn't have been in that office.
I'm actually ashamed of my overreactions of the past because I lost a lot of good potential team members.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I think I can say very, very, very plainly that I have massively repented for previous ways that there's no way you don't look at any, even if you're completely innocent, if you believe you're completely innocent. Let's just say that, just so you know how I think, guys, in case you're wondering, I could think I'm completely innocent. I'm still going to search. My wife will tell you, I'll look for the 1%, so I can blame myself for something, so I can fix something, because I cannot believe it's not possible 100% to zero. That's not possible. Right. So it's usually 60-40, 70-30, right? And you got to look at where was I wrong? What could I have done better? How could I have been a better brother and avoided this eventual collapse of a relationship, right? And I think that's what we've lamented is, and if I hear your heart the same way, going, I made mountains out of things that we could have just walked through. I got enemies out there that we don't need to be enemies. I love you still, and you're enemies of mine. And yet, why? Because we got conflict on a point, conflict on an issue, or of the name or something. This is inappropriate and is showing infantile behavior.
But isn't that a kingdom principle that we have to be cognizant of the fact that the Father has designed the gathering so that the tares and wheats grow together. In other words, we cannot separate or pluck. They're there for the benefit of the sons of light who are going to inherit the kingdom. They're there for not in the initial pain, not in the going through the pain, but coming out the other side, having encountered the resistance. So tares can be a good thing if we look at it that way. Because you and I would not be the people we are today
if it weren't for that. No,
if it wasn't for learning how to forgive, learning how to overcome. Those were necessary lessons that we needed.
I have to agree. I cannot believe that you would learn the same way without it. I think that, Deuteronomy 20 tells us about trees that are valuable in the siege. They are not fruitful trees, but they still have value, even though they are not fruitful. And so sometimes things that don't seem to be of value in your life turn out to be for different reasons. And the fact that, we still have butt hurtness out there, for lack of a better way to say that, is because you just need reconciliation, you need healing. So when you need reconciliation, you need two halves, right? This half is ready. This half is ready. Just so you know. So if anybody needs the other half, if they're wondering, is the Sholiaks willing to do reconciliation with ministries? I'm sure Sholiak Moshe would happily entertain a phone call from somebody he disconnected from, right?
But yes, right, correct. But before we go, we're out of time. Before we go, um, and maybe we can talk about this in the future.
Next conference, maybe.
Yeah, heaven does not operate on the principles of the earth.
That's right.
So that the tares are allowed to grow with the wheat on earth, but
Not in heaven.
not in heaven, because any tare that rises up is immediately evicted. So we could talk about that, another time.
I think we should. I think that's a good conference. It's a great place to leave off here. We love you all.
We do.
We speak the barakah upon all of your houses.
We
We do
do.
not compete with you. We want to complete with you. Our prayer for all of you is that you finish well. Amen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Shalom, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Shalom, shalom.